Hello, welcome to this PowerPhone webinar, Officer Down and Other Total Response Updates. My name is Danielle Morphy, and I'm the Marketing Manager for PowerPhone. And it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce Deb King, Quality Assurance Specialist here at PowerPhone.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to go over some of our new content that's coming out in our next update, which is currently open now for scheduling. So hopefully many of you, if not all of you, got your email blast starting yesterday. Get in there as quick as you can. It is a first come, first serve, and our calendar is going to fill quickly. And then as it rolls along and opens up new dates, again, remember that it is first come, first serve. So get in there as soon as you can so we can get you updated with this new content that we're going to take a look at today. So as Danielle said, that we're going to take a look at 3 new protocols that are going to be in this new update. We're going to take a look at our Officer Down protocol. It's something that's been a long time coming, something that's extremely helpful and necessary in one of the worst situations that we might experience when we're in the dispatch center. We're going to take a look at our new lost person protocol. This has to do with somebody who may be out in the wilderness on a hike or rafting or on a body of water of some sort, river, lake, something like that, that has found themselves or someone in their party that is lost. So this will be beneficial as well to be aware of. And then the last new protocol that we have in this round of updates are welfare check. Some of you may be familiar with it, calling it a well-being check, check well-being, whatever terminology you use for your agency. This particular protocol is going to be able to cover when we get those calls about checking on someone else. We'll also review quickly two new procedures. We've got a hanging procedure now that is in place that can be used in conjunction with the mental health protocol, particularly in those circumstances when we have an attempted suicide or a call regarding a possible suicide. And then we also have a stuck accelerator procedure, one that's going to be able to help any of those callers that find themselves traveling at a high rate of speed and unable to get the accelerator to allow the vehicle to decelerate. So we've got that information available. We're going to go over all of that real quickly here for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and start, if we will. We will go ahead and also talk about some additional maintenance updates, and we'll review that as well. But let's go ahead and start with our Officer Down protocol. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for you so that you can see me within the TR software in itself. There we go. Everybody should see this. So this looks familiar to you, hopefully, right? This is our call handler module. So our Officer Down protocol, let's go ahead and take a look at it and see how it can help your dispatchers as they're taking those calls in the center. Now remember, it's kind of focusing towards receiving a phone call in the dispatch center from a citizen that is reporting that an officer is needing some kind of an assistance. And as we were talking about this over the last few days, remember, it's not necessarily just one of your officers. It could be an officer that's traveling through your jurisdiction, maybe trying to get to the courthouse or something along those lines. So sometimes we might not have obvious information already in the center regarding an officer that needs help. So this can come in handy, certainly, in that type of a situation. So as you can see, we're going to discuss right up front, right, what kind of situation has happened. So as an example, I might say maybe it was a fight with the officer, right? It could range for anything. We've left it as a free text box so that information coming from the caller can be captured more in detail versus just a general selection of a situation. Once that's taken place, then of course we're going to address whether we've got the weapons. We want to see that question asked on pretty quickly on, right, to identify that particular hazard in this situation for our responders. If there is a weapon involved, of course, we're going to see if we can capture a description, whatever our caller can tell us. We know how important that is for the responding group that's going to help this officer to be aware of what kind of hazards they're going to be facing. If the suspect is still in the vicinity, you notice that we've got an alert that's coming up here. We definitely want to make sure that our caller stays safe at all times. So certainly if it's not safe for the caller to get out into the scene or to try to approach the officer to get some additional information, we don't want them to do that, of course. So little reminders there for us as well. Description of the suspect, of course, is going to be pretty critical for us. We're going to be looking for that if that's possible. If there's anybody else that's in danger right now, right? The caller themselves, maybe they're a part of whatever the situation was. Hopefully not so much, but if that's the case, of course, we want to assess that entire situation. If the officer's injured, we want to know about that as well, certainly, right? So if the officer's injured, if they can give us any kind of update as to what type of injuries maybe the officer has sustained. If they don't know, then we'll skip that question, and you'll notice that we go directly over to our secondary questions. Now, of course, if the officer had been injured or there was an indication, right, that there was injuries, then of course we would assess that. And then in addition to that, we would then capture some vital signs questions. I notice that we're not concerned about the age. We're going to keep the obvious stuff out of there. Time is of the essence certainly here, so we want to make sure that we capture what we need to know, what we don't already know. All right. Now, you also notice too that if it is one of those really dire situations where we're getting the officers in a critical conditions, maybe such as not conscious and not breathing, we see that we don't even have to worry about the age of the patient, right? So we can get right to not breathing and go directly to our CPR for the adult. So hopefully we've been able to make this flow as quickly and seamlessly as possible. Again, trying to get that help rendered to that officer as soon as possible. Once we get into our secondary questions, now, of course, if you're in CPR, you don't even have to worry about the secondary questions. Those are or not even a relevant situation at that point. But if we are in a situation where CPR is not relevant, right? Maybe there's just a minor injury to the officer or maybe no injury at all, right? We can gather this additional secondary information. Now, understand our secondary questions, right, is just additional information to help those that are headed to the scene. So if you already have units on scene, then it may not even be necessary to go through these questions, but just take a glance at what we have available. A vehicle description, if there is any possibility of the vehicle still being in the area, we certainly want to capture that vehicle description for when the officers are arriving, right? The help is arriving. If there isn't any kind of vehicle information, then of course it's going to skip over and not make you waste any time on that. If the suspect's no longer there, if they know what direction the suspect left by any chance, of course, again, helping those responding to this officer to help them out, have information that can prepare them in case they run across that suspect on their way. If the officer still has his or her radio as well as his or her weapon, we know that that's important to keep track of as well. So we do have that question applied. And then, of course, if the caller has any ability to see or know what the officer's name or badge number is, but again, only if it's safe to do so, as well as then the officer's, the vehicle's identification number. All of these efforts to try to identify that officer, like we said, especially if it's in a situation where it may not be one of your own officers, it may be one from another jurisdiction that was passing through. So that in itself is the questions that we would go through. Pre-arrival instructions available for this particular protocol, simply to encourage the caller not to touch anything that may have been touched by the suspect. Of course, as we know, we want to try to preserve the scene as much as possible. And then, of course, encouraging, if it is safe to do so, to have the caller or the witness be able to go back and reach out to those that have responded to the scene to help give any further detail about what they witnessed. Okay, so that in itself is our officer down protocol. Now, I want to go ahead and throw in here at this point, and this will be something that I'll remind you throughout the entire webinar, is remember that PowerPhone is available to help you at your particular agency to tweak anything that we have provided for you to make sure that it meets your needs. So if there is any additional questions that your agency needs to obtain, right, to ask to be able to obtain that information, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We want to make sure that these protocols meet your standards as well and help you achieve everything that you need while you're taking these calls for service. So be sure to reach out to us. We'll get you in touch. Reach out to us, reach out to your customer success representative, and we'll get you in touch with somebody who can help get your protocols to where they need to be for you if you need something more in here. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and scoot on over. Remember, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in your questions chat. We'll address them all towards the end once we get through this for everybody. So let's go ahead now and let's take a look at our next one, which is the lost person. You remember we talked about this being somebody out in the wilderness that potentially either a member of their party is lost, or they are lost, or it might not even be necessary that they're lost, but maybe they need some assistance. So maybe it's a search and rescue type call. So this would be applicable to that. So we start with the first question about gathering the what three words. Now, if you haven't heard about what three words, this is a great tool to use. It's in the same concept of your Latin long. It can pinpoint a caller's location if they know their what three words. If you're not familiar with it, we have a little bit of a prompt. If your current version of Total Response doesn't already have the what three words plugin, the application there within the system, it shows that you can go to their website, right? What three words, and gather what their three specific words are. They would have this for you. They would provide that to you. And then it pinpoints just like GPS coordinates does. Within, I believe it's like a 3-meter radius for you, three square meter area of exactly where they're at. So again, that's if it hasn't already been done. And then we can go to describing the situation. So what is it that they're doing, right? What is the problem? Why is it that they're needing assistance out in this remote area? We're going to address if anybody's in need of medical attention, how many people are in the group, right? If anybody's separated from the party, to be aware of that. What their method of transportation is. So were they out there 4-wheel driving, ATVing, boating, canoeing, whatever the case may be. Were they on a hike? Were they on foot? Anything along those lines. We want to ascertain whether there's damage to their transportation. Maybe this is one of the reasons why they're not able to get back out to get help, or maybe they can only get to a certain point. Again, maybe it's that they truly are lost and they really have lost their way. Of course, like we said, the damage to the transportation, and then if they can describe that damage. Once we move into secondary questions, again, a lot more information to gather for those responders, like where they started their trip, what direction they've been traveling in, what time, right, they started their trip, so that we can estimate a little bit of how long they've been out there on the hike or whatever the case may be, any trail markers, landmarks that they've seen. We've also included a question regarding anything that they can hear, so something out of the ordinary or something that's significant to help pinpoint their location, like water, right, waterfall, a river, aircraft, are they close to an airport, something along those lines. Then we'll also address, of course, their wireless carrier so that we can continue to support them through getting that ping from their 911, right? How much battery life is on their phone. And you can see we've got another alert here to be cautious about their battery life. So we certainly don't want to not be aware that we might be losing them because of the battery, right, losing their connection. So in conjunction with that, we're also asking if there's anybody else in the group that has a working phone with them. So we'll be obtaining, right, their phone name and phone number. So again, we know the battery life plays a significant role in that. And then if there was anybody separated from the group, right, if we can get their description as well. And then a few more questions to ask, because we just don't know, those circumstances. It could take several hours for us to be able to get rescue out to them. How much food and water they may have. Do they have enough medication for anybody who may be having to take medication for the next 12 to 24 hours, and then enough clothing and supplies to be safe for a longer period of time. Now, again, some of your agencies may not have any need for something like this. Understand that, but for those agencies that do have or have a part of a rescue operation for subjects that might be out in the wilderness, again, if there's anything more that's necessary, if we need to help tweak this for your standards, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Reach out to your customer success representative, and we'll get somebody in there and get this set up for you. Pre-arrival instructions for our lost person. We're going to encourage them that if it's safe to do so, right, to make sure they stay where they're at so that we're not continuing to try to chase them down. We're going to ask them to continue to listen closely to see if they can hear any of the rescuers once they get out into that area. If by chance it happens to be dark outside, again, we're going to help encourage, right, if they have a flashlight, turn it on when they hear somebody coming so that that can help as well. But we do want to be concerned about their battery life for their flashlight. And then helping them, encourage them to be visible, right? Whether it's bright clothing, anything that they have. Sometimes maybe even setting a campfire may be appropriate, but of course you can see that we have an alert here about being aware of any concerns, safety concerns like red flag warnings, any local bans currently, whatever the case may be, we want to make sure that that gets taken into consideration as well. So that's our lost person protocol. All right. So again, if you have any questions, use your question tab, right? We'll address those once we get through all of these. Let's go ahead and go now to our last one, the last protocol that we have available, our welfare check. Again, you may know it as a check well-being or a well-being check, right? We have all those different terms for it. And let's take a look at the questions that are there. Now, remember that with a brand new protocol, there really isn't any necessary training, so to speak, that's required because the process is all the same, as I'm sure you can see from here. So don't be intimidated by it. As soon as you guys get this round of updates, get in there and start playing around with it and becoming more and more familiar with it, just like you have the ones that you have already in your center. All right, so our welfare check. So first we're going to address, right, who it is that we're going to be checking on. So what's the name of the individual that we're going to be taking a look at. And this really can even apply. I can remember from my experience, a lot of the welfare checks were sometimes the civil situations that might have to do with parental custody still can apply to this as well. All right, so it's not just necessarily I haven't seen my neighbor in a couple of weeks or something along those lines. It can still be applied for those civil situations if you take those calls in your center. So the next question, of course, why are we concerned about this person, right? Is there any access to any weapons? Again, trying to identify those hazards to our responders as quick as possible. And if there is any access, we're going to see that we can find difference in recommendations as far as priorities and getting this information over to our responders as quick as possible. So how old the person is, right? Do they have any vulnerabilities or handicaps that we need to be aware of? What was the last time, how long ago, right? Not necessarily time as in time of day, but how long ago, right? Did you have contact with that person? We're also going to look to ascertain about any restraining orders, harassment orders, protective orders, again, whatever terminology you may use for your jurisdiction. And then if they are in place or there's a possibility, then we want to capture a little bit more about who the order is against if that information is available. Secondary questions, we'll move into identifying the relationship of the caller to the person that we're checking on. If there isn't anything that is already predefined and that some other form of a relationship, we do have an opportunity to capture that information as well. How did they communicate last with the person, right? Were they in personal contact with them? Was it a social media post? Was it a text message? Anything like that that can help the responders, again, gather this information. As well as, is there any medical conditions that we need to be aware of? So in addition to those vulnerabilities and those handicaps, any specific medical conditions that we need to be aware of, a phone number for the person, any animals at the location, not only along as the hazard line, but as well as sometimes information regarding the animals can help the responders identify what's going on there as well. And then, of course, if there's any other location that this person or people might be, again, trying to capture all the information that may be necessary. Everybody knows through the use of TR that you don't have to ask every single question. So if you do find it appropriate to skip over questions, the system is going to allow you to do that. We're just trying to capture information that might cover any circumstance or any situation that might arise. As far as pre-arrival instructions for our welfare check, we're just simply going to make sure that our caller calls us back and gives us an update, especially if they've had any contact with that party. Okay, so that is going to take care of our 3 brand new protocols that are available through this next update, content update for you. So with that, what I'd like to do is go ahead and let's review now our procedures. Now, the procedures can be evoked at any point, right? Remember that procedures are a specific point, a step-by-step task set of instructions to either provide pre-arrival instructions or, again, to gather information regarding that specific task. So for our procedures, let's first start with our hanging procedure. This has been asked for a long time, and I just want to tell you guys that we really, really appreciate all of the feedback that we get from you. We are listening. We are in a position to where we can now really be able to respond to your feedback. And we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your loyalty to us. So please continue with that feedback. This has been a long time coming. I'm really proud to say I actually had a little bit to do with this one as well. So this is kind of near and dear to my heart. So thank you very much for all of your feedback and staying with us as we can get us now to this position where we can be so responsive back to your suggestions. So the hanging strangled procedure will also be able to be evoked through the mental health protocol, with especially if it is a suicidal situation, and this is the means of the suicide or the attempted suicide, then there is a direct link through that protocol as well. But remember, with the procedure, you can now invoke it at any time, especially if it ever gets configured within your system as a hotkey. Again, if you need any assistance with learning how to do that, please reach out to your customer success representatives. We will definitely get somebody back in touch with you to help you get this configured as such. Okay, so talking about the procedure in itself, first thing that we want to identify is what kind of hazards are there at the scene, depending on what the circumstance is, right? Officer safety, responder safety is paramount in this as well. So we want to address that at first. And there is an advisory statement that we want you to be familiar with too, because if there are any hazards to the responders or to the caller, we want to be able to get that caller to a safe location and wait in a safe location for the responders to arrive. All right, so we addressed if there are any hazards at the scene. Is there any then obvious signs of death? Now, obvious signs of death may be defined more specifically through your local agencies. If that's the case, and if you feel that it's something that you want to have published here within the procedure, again, not a problem. Just reach out to us and let us be able to connect with you so that we can get this updated for you. Of course, there is going to be the announcement, the instruction given to the caller. If there are any hazards or any obvious signs of death, please don't approach the scene, right? Wait for the responders at a safe location. We'll gather additional information about accessibility to the victim, what their specific location is, and how we may be able to access them. Are they still hanging or entangled? All right, as well as what means this took place at. Are there any rescue efforts underway now? It may be that the caller's by themselves, or maybe that the caller's not. There's other people along that are there to help. So we want to ascertain that. And then last but not least, of course, is the caller willing and able to safely free the victim if necessary, or assist further with CPR instructions? Now, if they're not able to assist, right, we've got this information here that's going to come up, encouraging them once again to move to a safe location, especially if they're unable to safely get the victim down, or if for some reason they're unwilling or unable to assist. And sometimes in these particular situations, we have more than just the victim who is physically endangered. We have the victim who's the caller too, they're traumatized as well. So we want to keep an awareness for both and be cautious about providing a safe environment for our caller just as much as for our victim. Now, of course, if they are encouraged or if they're willing to assist, then we have our link to every one of the CPR procedures. So, of course, that can quickly get you as the dispatcher or your dispatchers, your call takers, into being able to provide those instructions to the caller if that's appropriate for that particular procedure. So remember, the procedure can be invoked at any time, especially if you're able to set it up as a hotkey. Again, if you need some assistance with that, reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you with that. And then we do have a link established through the mental health protocol where it can go directly to this procedure if that's appropriate for the call that's being taken. Okay, so that's our hanging procedure. Our last procedure to go ahead and take a look at that we offer for you today is going to be our stuck accelerator. I think all of us remember the stories that hit the media a few years back about people traveling at high rates of speed down highways, unable to get their car to decelerate. So what we have here are quick instructions. So first off, right, we're going to see if we can get our driver to shift the vehicle into neutral. You can see that there's some information that's coming up over here on our side into our alert and our dynamic area on the right hand side of the procedure. So it can apply to both our manual as well as automatic transmissions. So that's our first attempt, is try to get them to shift into neutral. Hopefully that, I know it's going to make the engine sound crazy. Encourage your caller to just bear with it. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. As far as the idea, of course, is the vehicle to stop or to slow down. So even though the engine's revving while they're in neutral, still going to be an all right situation there. Keep applying the brakes, right, with firm and constant pressure. We're not going to encourage the caller to pump the brakes. Again, we want them to be sure that they're getting a constant pressure on the brakes, because the idea is to get this vehicle to slow down. Then we're going to ascertain if the vehicle is indeed slowing down now that they've shifted into neutral and applying the brakes. If that is not the case, then you can see that we're going to go in and start discussing the type of ignition that they have. With the two common types that we have the old style vehicles, right, with the key ignition still, and then we have the start stop button ignitions, those that are often with just a key fob, right, having a key fob in the area of the vehicle to be able to start and stop that ignition. So we have specific instructions for both, starting with the key ignition, right, to turn the key to the ACC or the accessories mode by turning it back one click, right, back towards them. This will shut the engine off and allow the driver to continue to steer. Now, we do have some additional information. Again, once they turn the engine off through the ignition here, of course, the power accessories, power steering, power brakes, are going to become a lot more difficult to maneuver. So we do want to provide that information for you to be able to pass on to your caller to make them aware that that is going to be the case. So be aware of that. And then from the key ignition here, again, we're going to go there to then see if we can then continue to slow this vehicle down. Again, still applying the brakes, see if we can get this vehicle to come to a complete stop. Now, if the ignition of the vehicle that's in question is one of those start stop button ignitions, and of course we have those instructions as well. All right, simply just need to press and hold that start stop button itself for 3 seconds. That should shut the engine off. Again, turning off the engine is going to make those power accessories a little bit more difficult to maneuver, but to keep them aware. And then we'll continue to stay on the phone with them to see when they have come to a complete stop. As they let us know that they are coming to a complete stop, we're going to then ask them to shift now into park. The engine should be turned off if we've had to go through that situation. If we didn't have to go through turning the engine off, if you're just simply applying the brakes, was successful, then at this point, of course, we are going to encourage them to turn the ignition off and apply the emergency brake. And last is going to be really important, to make sure we obtain an updated location for them so that we can let the responders know where they've been able to come to a safe rest. All right, so that's the stuck accelerator procedure as well. And as we mentioned, if there is anything more that needs to be done, be sure to reach out to your customer success representative so that we can get in contact with you and manipulate what we need to do to make sure that these procedures meet your standards, meet your needs for your agency. Now, in addition to the new builds, I'm going to go ahead and share an example. In addition to the new builds, we've got some maintenance stuff that we're going to be doing too. This particular round of updates is pretty extensive. Some of you who may have already registered understand that you're registering for an all-day event. It's actually going to be a matter of at least a 2-day update to you. Part of the 1 day is going to be these new builds, but we have a long list of maintenance updates that are for you as well. And some of that has to do with new stuff. For specifically, let's take a look at the question about fuel types. Now that we have a lot more hybrid and electric vehicles on the road, this poses another challenge and another layer of consideration for our responders. So when those situations like a motor vehicle accident or a vehicle fire are what you're handling, I want you to see how we've incorporated now a new type, or I should say a new question regarding the type of vehicles. Specifically, if it is an electric or a hybrid vehicle, we now know that it takes a lot more water and resources to be able to deal with those vehicles if they do catch fire. So you'll see this new question as an example in our motor vehicle accident, and we also have it included in our vehicle fire protocol as well. So again, capturing this information so that we can stay up to date with what we've got going on currently in our world, right, to deal with those challenges that are going to be new to our responders. Additionally, some of the other ones just to go over real quickly, and then we'll wrap this up for questions. We have reordered our trespass questions. We are working pretty closely with some subject matter experts to be able to say maybe something that we had was appropriate for back in the day, but let's bring it more current to today. So we've got the question about immediate danger and weapons a lot more quicker in line at this point as well. So lots of stuff coming to you with our new content update. Lots of maintenance stuff like this, existing things that we're tweaking, making it a little bit better. And then, as you've seen, our new content that is coming forward for you. Okay, if you have any questions, be sure you put those in the question tab. All right, I think that will do it for me. Danielle, is there anything else?
There is a question, but I don't know if we want to take questions first or talk about the next slide. It's up to you, Deb. We're talking about eligibility criteria.
Sure. Okay, so for this particular round of updates, it's going to be very important that your system has to be at least on version 5.3.0 or higher. The reason for that is some of the information, some of the stuff that is new in this round on those older versions of software won't work. So we need to get you up to date in your software version, and that release is coming very soon too. And you'll see it just like you saw the emails coming out regarding the content. That email is coming to you very soon as well about getting your software up to date. So we do need you to be on 5.3.0 or higher in order to receive this next round of content update. If you're not, like I said, you are going to get a notice that the 5.4 is available. So you'll be able to work with our technicians and get your software updated. And then we will turn you right around and get you into scheduling for your content update as well. Good question. Thank you for asking.
Great. And I do see we had a question. I believe this was had to do with the electric vehicles, perhaps. Dan Belsfield asked, where does the questioning lead if you answer yes to a vehicle slowing down?
Oh, this will be for our stuck accelerator procedure then.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back. Let me go back and I'll share my screen one more time. We'll pull that up so you can see as well. We're just going to pop this in our trespass just so we can pull it up and make sure it is visible for you guys to see. Get on the right tab. There we go. Okay, so if the vehicle is slowing down, so your question here, right? If the answer is yes, it's slowing down, then it comes down here to the let me know once you've come to the complete stop. So if applying the brakes is allowing their vehicle to slow down, then we'll want to know once they come to the complete stop, and then we'll go from there about shifting into park, turning off the ignition, and applying the emergency brake. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, we do have another question.
Great.
Oh, we actually don't. We have a thank you from Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, thank you, Dan. glad that answered your question for you. Good.
So I would open this up again to anyone else who has questions about the updated procedures. And let's see. Oh, we have one coming in. How do you find what version you are on?
That's a really good question. Now, you can reach out to your customer success representative and they can help you with that. But since I have my screen showing, let me show you a little trick that can tell you real quick. Up here in the upper left-hand corner of your call handler screen, if you click on your help menu and you open up the about option, my secondary window is not showing. Oh, dang it. Our logo pops up. So I apologize, through our webinar, the secondary window that comes up on my screen didn't show up on the screen. But that window will pop up, and below our, or just in front of our colored logo, right, the red T says total response, you'll see where it'll say version, and your version number is there. If you have any difficulty finding that or seeing that, then please reach out to your your customer success representative, and we can walk you through it even more so. We can also look into your account too. We have that information in your customer account that we can identify it for you as well.
All right, I'll do a last call for any more questions about protocols and procedure update here for total response. Again, feel free to put them in the questions tab. We'll give it a minute. And if not, again, the recording of this webinar will be sent to you. So for any colleagues who weren't able to make the live event, they will receive an email with the recorded webinar as well. I have another question coming through. Can any of these protocols and procedures be changed to fit our needs?
Absolutely, they can. Absolutely. So once again, just reach out to your customer success representative. Let them know that you need some work done on the protocols or the procedures, that there's some additional questions or whatever the case may be, some kind of tweaking that needs to be done to meet your needs at your individual agency, and we can get you taken care of with one of our implementation managers. They can reach back out to you and they'll work with you to modify those protocols or procedures to meet your needs. Especially recently, we've got the big push, right? I think it was middle of last year, 988, the mental health or crisis intervention actual response teams are becoming very prominent across the country. So we saw that there was a big need for that. So by all means, if you've got anything, not just the stuff that's new that we showed you today, anything in your protocols or any procedures that need to be updated or tweaked to meet your individual agency's needs, by all means, reach out to us. We're here to help you accomplish that.
And one more note, in the chat box, there is a link that will take you to the entire list of the total response content updates. I know Deb talked about a few of them, but there are several more for you to review. So you can just go to that link and you'll be able to view it. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for your time, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And thank you, Deb, for walking us through this.